Have you ever walked past a garden and noticed something felt different? The flowers were still there. The sunlight hadn't changed. Bees were still moving from bloom to bloom. But somehow, the energy seemed off. Most people would never think twice about it. Yet inside a beehive, a single invisible event can transform an organized society into something completely different almost overnight. And what's strange is that it doesn't begin with a loud warning. It begins with silence. A silence so important that thousands of bees can sense it long before any human notices something is wrong. Welcome to Hive Mind. Subscribe before you leave, because after this video, you may never look at bees the same way again. Today, we're uncovering what really happens when a beehive loses its queen, why worker bees react in ways that seem almost impossible, how an entire colony suddenly changes its behavior, and the emergency plan hidden inside every hive. But the fourth thing we cover is the one most people never see coming. Let's step inside the hive. Most people think the queen bee is a ruler giving orders to thousands of workers. At first glance, it certainly looks that way. One queen, thousands of followers. But that's not what scientists have discovered. The queen doesn't command the colony like a king or queen in a human kingdom. Instead, she acts more like a living signal. Every day, she releases special chemical messages called pheromones. These signals spread through the hive as workers touch and interact with one another. Imagine standing in a crowded stadium where everyone somehow knows the game is still being played. The queen's presence creates that feeling inside the hive. As long as those signals exist, everything feels normal. Nurse bees care for larvae. Foragers gather nectar. Guards protect entrances. The entire colony functions like a living machine. But then something happens. The queen dies, or disappears, or becomes too weak to continue producing enough signals. And suddenly, the message begins to fade. Not instantly, gradually. Like hearing music become quieter and quieter until you realize it has stopped completely. What few people realize is that worker bees can detect this change long before a beekeeper ever opens the hive. The colony begins to feel the absence. And this is where things become truly fascinating, because the workers don't panic, at least not at first. What this means is that the hive is not controlled by the queen alone. It is constantly monitoring her condition every moment of every day. But this isn't the strangest part, because once the colony realizes the queen is gone, a hidden emergency system activates. Most people never see it. Researchers and experienced beekeepers have observed that queenless colonies immediately begin searching for a solution. Inside the hive, nurse bees inspect developing larvae. Not all larvae, only very young ones. The future of the colony now depends on a race against time. Deep within the warm darkness of the hive, workers select a few lucky larvae and begin feeding them something extraordinary: royal jelly, a nutrient-rich substance unlike the food given to ordinary worker bees. What's amazing is that these larvae were never originally meant to become queens. They were ordinary bees. But because of how they are fed, their entire destiny changes. Imagine two identical twins. One grows into a worker, the other becomes a queen, capable of laying thousands of eggs. The difference isn't genetics, it's nutrition. As workers gather around these special queen cells, the atmosphere inside the hive changes. Every action becomes focused on a single goal: creating a replacement before it's too late. If you've ever seen bees visiting flowers in your backyard, it's easy to imagine them as independent insects. But moments like this reveal something deeper. The colony behaves almost like a single organism, trying desperately to survive. What this means is that the hive already carries the blueprint for its own rescue. But something even more surprising happens. Because not every queenless hive succeeds. Most people assume that once a replacement queen is created, the problem is solved. Unfortunately, nature isn't that simple. The young queen must emerge. She must mature. And then, she must complete one of the most dangerous journeys of her life, a mating flight. On a warm day, she leaves the safety of the hive and flies into the open sky. Birds hunt insects. Weather changes unexpectedly. Weather changes unexpectedly. Predators wait. And unlike workers, the queen cannot simply be replaced again and again. If she fails to return, the colony faces another crisis. Scientists believe this stage is one of the most vulnerable moments in a hive's existence. Everything depends on a single bee returning home successfully. Picture thousands of workers waiting inside a dark hive while their future hangs somewhere in the air above fields, gardens, and forests. The survival of an entire society depends on one flight. What this means is that even the most organized colonies can be placed at the mercy of chance. And the next part is the one most people never see coming. Because sometimes a hive remains queenless for too long. When this happens, strange things begin to occur. Worker bees normally cannot reproduce. The queen's pheromones prevent it. But once those signals disappear for an extended period, some workers begin developing the ability to lay eggs. At first, this sounds like a solution. It isn't. These eggs are unfertilized. They can only produce drones. Male bees, no workers, no future queens, no long-term future for the colony. Beekeepers often describe these hives as becoming increasingly disorganized. The colony continues functioning, but something essential has been lost. It's like watching a city continue operating after losing its ability to raise the next generation. Eventually, the numbers decline. The workforce shrinks, and the hive slowly fades. What this means is that survival isn't just about staying alive today. It's about creating tomorrow, and that's a lesson hidden throughout nature. So what really happens when a beehive loses its queen? At first, almost nothing. No alarms, no dramatic collapse. Just a subtle silence spreading through thousands of lives. Then comes detection, adaptation, hope, risk, and sometimes survival. What appears from the outside to be a collection of tiny insects reveals itself as something far more extraordinary. A society capable of sensing loss, responding to crisis, and fighting for its future using systems millions of years in the making. So the next time you see bees moving quietly among flowers, remember this. Somewhere nearby, an entire civilization may be solving problems, making decisions, and responding to challenges that humans will never fully see. The hive may look silent, but beneath that silence, a remarkable story is always unfolding. Have you ever noticed bees behaving differently in your garden or near a hive? Let us know in the comments below.